Welcome to The Story Apothecary, a podcast filled with medicinal and healing stories. My name is Nana Timova, and I'm a storyteller and a pharmacist, and stories are medicines which I dispense. In this podcast, you will find my prescriptions of stories for the body, mind, heart and soul. So I invite you to join me as we enter the healing world of stories together. A very warm welcome to the Story Apothecary, a space hopefully where you can relax and listen to some soothing and inspirational stories. There's nowhere else to be, there's nothing else to do, just listen, just for a few minutes. This story is just about that. What I'm telling you today. It's about in the middle of a busy day with lots of work to do. Stopping, singing, dancing. It's a time to work and a time to dance. And I really love this about this story. It's called the Wood Maiden, and it comes from the former Czechoslovakia, which is now the Czech Republic and Slovakia. And wood maidens, they appear all throughout the Slavic countries. This is a time wood maidens. Sometimes they're called vili, other times they're called samudivi. And I talk a lot about them and other creatures like the rusałki in Baba Yaga's calendar on Patreon. And speaking of Patreon, thank you so much to all my patrons for your support. And because of you, I can keep on going with this podcast. So thank you ever so much. And thank you to Rachel and to Jenya, who are my newest patrons this month. Thank you so much for your support. Before we can get into the story, I also wanted to mention to you, as I'm recording this in less than 2 weeks, I'll be telling live on Zoom again on Saturday the 19th of June at 7:30 p.m. UK time, sun stories for the Summer Solstice. And I'll be joined by folk singer Anna Sofia Minato, whose voice is just beautiful and magical. And she lives in Bulgaria and she sings traditional songs and she will transport you into different worlds. It's between the stories, which are so special, never heard before in English. I've translated them myself and they are filled with beauty and wonder and sadness and happiness, love, heartbreak, magic. And the theme is the sun, an old deity, the sun's mother, the sky, the moon. You get to hear about the sun's wedding. The time also when the sky was down, down low, where people could touch it. So I really hope you can join me. I will put a link to where you can get the tickets in the show notes. I hope you enjoy the story for today. I want to tell you a little bit more about these Wood Maidens though before. Each country has different Wood Maidens. They all dance. They are the best dancers of the world, as you will see. There is no one quite like them. They can outdance pretty much everybody. In fact, there are stories which I've told before that sometimes they would meet a shepherd. And the shepherd would want to marry them and steal their shifts, and they bargain. They have a voice. They're wild women, and they say, "We'll marry you if you play your pipe. If you outplay us, you can have one of us as your wife. But if we outdance you, you will need to stay with us, a slave, and play with us whenever we want to, until the day that you die." He could refuse. But he is bedazzled with someone he has just met. And so he agrees. Different things happen in different stories. This story has no shepherd, but it does have beautiful, kind, dancing women. I hope you enjoy it. Once upon a time, there lived a little girl called Betushka, and she lived with just her mother, who was a poor widow. And they lived in a little tumble-down cottage, and they had 2 very small nanny goats. How much she loved those goats. And as poor as they were, Betushka was always so cheerful, like the little nanny goats. They would go running up and down, and she would chase them and laugh. Always so playful, always so humorous, always in such a good mood, even though times were hard and money was little. From spring till autumn, she pastured those goats in the beautiful silver birch wood. And every morning, when she left her home, her mother, she gave her a little basket with a slice of bread and a spindle. "See that you bring back a full spindle," her mother always said. Betushka nodded. She smiled and then skipped like the little 2 nanny goats down to the forest. Betushka had no distaff, and so, being a creative soul, she wound the flax around her head. She would wind and wind that flax, wind and wind that flax. Then she took the little basket and went skipping and singing behind the goats all the way to the birchwood. When they got there, she sat down under a tree and pulled the fibres of the flax from her head with her left hand, and with her right hand she let down the spindle so that it went humming along the ground. And all the while she sang until the woods echoed and the little goats nibbled away at the leaves and the grass. When the sun showed midday, she put the spindle aside, called the goats, and gave them a whole mouthful of bread, a bread that her mother had given her so that they wouldn't stray, as she ran off to the woods to hunt berries, strawberries, wild raspberries, and all the other wild fruit that was in season. And then when she had finished her bread and fruit, she jumped up, folded her arms, and began to dance and sing. She danced among the grass, and she sang so beautifully the birds stopped just a little to hear her. The sun smiled at her through those green trees, and the little goats resting on the grass thought, "What a merry little shepherdess we have." After her dance, she went back to her spinning, and she worked so industriously, the work now being made much lighter after some dancing and some singing, as it often is. In the evening, when she got home, her mother never had to scold her, because her spindle was always empty. But one day, at noon, when the sun was at its highest and when her shadow was the shortest, just after she had eaten, as usual, she was going to dance. And then suddenly, in front of her, there stood the most beautiful maiden she had ever seen, dazzled in a white shift, so thin, as fine as a spider's web, long golden hair down to her waist, as if made from fibres of the moon. On her head she wore a wreath of woodland flowers, dittany and wormwood, iris and periwinkle, magic flowers. Petushka, she was speechless with surprise, but also alarm. But the maiden smiled at her. It was like the first green leaf of spring. And then the maiden said to her in a sweet voice, lyrical, beautiful, "Petushka, do you like to dance?" A manner so gracious, the Petushka no longer felt afraid and said, oh yes, I could dance all day long." "Come then," said the Wood Maiden, "come, let us dance together. I'll teach you." And with that, she tucked up her skirt, put her arm about Petushka's waist. They began to dance. At once, such enchanting music sounded over their heads that Petushka's heart went 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, in the rhythm of the dance. The musicians, of course, sat on the branches of the birch trees. And they had little frock coats, black and grey, many a colour. It was a carefully chosen orchestra that had gathered at the bidding of the most beautiful maiden. Oh, there were larks, oh, there were nightingales, finches and linnets, thrushes and blackbirds, and showy mockingbirds. Oh, what music! What birdsong! What magic! Petrushka's cheeks burned. Her eyes shone. She forgot everything. She forgot her spinning. She forgot her goats. She forgot her house. She forgot her mother. All she could do was gaze in the eyes of her dancing partner, that Wood Maiden, and she was moving with such grace, such lightness. The grass didn't even seem to bend underneath her feet. Those feet, so slender, like a wreath. They danced from noon till sundown. And yet, Petrushka wasn't at least a bit tired. She had so much energy about her. And then when they finally stopped dancing, when the music ceased, the maiden, she disappeared as quickly as she had come. Petrushka looked around, but not a whisper, not a whirl of her skirt. Petrushka looked around. The sun was sinking behind the wood. She put her hands to the unspun flax on her head. She remembered suddenly. Oh, the spindle. The spindle was lying unfilled in the grass, and then she looked down in the flax and laid it with the spindle in her basket. How could she have forgotten? What happened to her? She called the goats and then started home. She reproached herself so bitterly that she had allowed this beautiful maiden to beguile her. How could she do it? How could she have let herself be taken in this magical dancing? And as she told herself, she promised that another time she would not listen to her. She would not dance again. She would just do her work, and that would be that. And she was so quiet. She was so quiet thinking about this over and over again that her little goats, missing her merry song, looked around to see if it was really her. Was it really their shepherdess? Her mother too, when she got home, she wondered why she didn't sing and questioned her. Petrushka, are you ill? She touched her forehead. You don't seem hot. Are you? What's wrong? No, dear mother. I'm not ill. I've been singing too much and my throat is dry. Her mother accepted it. She wondered, though. Something didn't seem quite right. And she knew that her mother did not need that yarn at once. She took time to reel it, and so she hid the spindle in the unspun flax, hoping to make up tomorrow what she did not do today. And she didn't tell her mother not a single word about the beautiful maiden. The next day, after a good night's sleep, she felt cheerful again. and she drove those goats to pasture, and she sang merrily once more. At the birchwood, she sat down to her spinning, singing all the while, for with a song on the lips, work falls from the hands much more easily. Noon came. Petrushka gave a little bit of bread to each of the goats, and then ran off to the wood to look for wild strawberries. Then she ate her lunch. "Oh, my little goats," she laughed, as she brushed up the crumbs from the birds. "I mustn't dance today. I mustn't dance today." "Why mustn't you dance today?" a sweet voice asked, and there right in front of her stood a beautiful maiden, as though she had fallen from the clouds. Oh, Petrushka was worse frightened than before. She closed her eyes tight, just hoping that she would go away, or maybe she dreamed it, or something. But the maiden just repeated her question, "Why mustn't you dance today?" And Petrushka said timidly, "Oh, forgive me, beautiful lady, for not dancing with you. If I dance with you, I cannot spin my stint, and then my mother will scold me. Today, before the sun sets, I must make up for all I lost yesterday, and today's work too." "Come, child, come, dance. Before the sun sets, we'll find some way of getting that spinning done. Dance." And she tucked up her skirt and put her arm about Petrushka, and the musicians in the treetops tucked up, and off they whirled. The maiden danced more beautifully than ever, almost hovering, gliding across the forest floor. Such a thing Petrushka had never seen before. She couldn't take her eyes from her. She didn't want to blink, just not to miss a second. And she forgot her goats, she forgot her spinning, she forgot her cottage, she forgot her mother. And all she wanted to do was dance forever. At sundown, the maiden paused, and the music stopped. Then Petrushka, clasping her head to her head where the unspun flax was, just burst into tears. The work undone, another day lost. How could she have let herself be weak again and dance? But the beautiful maiden took the flax from her head, wound it round the stem of a beautiful slender birch, grasped the spindle, and began to spin. That spindle hummed along the ground and filled in no time. Before the sun sank all the way down behind the woods, all the flax was spun, even that which was left from the day before. The maiden handed Petrushka the full spindle and said, "Remember my words. Reel and grumble not. Reel and grumble not." When she said this, the maiden vanished completely, as if the earth had swallowed her. Petrushka was so happy now, as she thought to herself on her way home, "Oh, she's so good and kind. I'll dance with her again tomorrow if she asks me. Oh, how I hope she asks me." She sang her merry little song as usual when the goats, they trotted cheerfully along, like goats do. She found her mother vexed with her, for she had not to reel yesterday's yarn, and she had discovered the spindle was not full. She reproached her for not doing her work. Yesterday they had no money, they had to go to the market and sell it. How could she not have done the work? What were you doing yesterday? She said. Why didn't you spin your stint? Petrushka hung her head in shame. Forgive me, mother. I danced too long. But see today, showing the spindle, today I more than made up for yesterday. And her mother said no more. Went to milk the goats, and Petrushka put away the spindle. She so wanted to tell her mother about her adventure, the maiden, the singing, the birds, the dancing. Oh, what dancing! But she thought to herself, no, I'll wait. If that beautiful lady comes again, I'll ask her who she is, and then I'll tell mother, so I have the complete story. And so she said not a word. On a third morning, she drove the goats as usual to the birch wood, to spin and to sing. And when the sun pointed to noon, she laid her spindle on the grass, gave the goats a mouthful of bread, gathered some wild raspberries, ate her lunch, and then again she gave those crumbs to the birds. Today, my little goat, she said, I will dance for you. She jumped up, folded her arms, and was just about to see whether she could move as gracefully as a beautiful maiden, when the maiden herself stood right before her. Let's dance together, she said. She smiled at Petrushka and put her arm about her. The music above their heads, those little beaks, sang such beautiful notes. And the two dancers, they whirled around and round with flying feet. Again, Petrushka forgot her spindle, she forgot her goats, she forgot her mother, and again she saw nothing but that beautiful maiden. Her waist as lithe as a willow tree. All she could hear in her ears was the enchanting music, and it seemed to her that her feet danced for themselves. They danced all the way to sundown again, and the maiden paused and the music ceased. Petrushka looked around. The sun already behind the woods. She clapped her hands to her head again, looked around at the thin and filled spindle, and burst into tears. Oh, what will my mother say? What will my mother say? Give me your little basket. I will put something in it, something which will more than make up for today's stint. Petrushka handed her the basket. The maiden took it and vanished. And in a moment, she was back. She returned the basket and said, Look not inside until you're home. Look not inside until you're home. And as she said those words, she was gone, as if the wind had blown her away. Petrushka wanted so awfully to look inside, and she was bursting with curiosity, but she was really afraid to. And the basket was so light, she wondered, was there anything there at all? Was that lovely lady just fooling her? Maybe she was playing tricks on her, and she couldn't resist. She really wanted to have a look, and she didn't want to be scolded by her mother, so she it took the better of her, and halfway through, she peeped in to see. Her basket was full of nothing but birch leaves. birch leaves. Oh, indeed, Batushka just burst into tears and reproached herself for being such a simpleton. As her frustration grew, she threw a handful of leaves from the basket onto the floor. She thought to herself, "Oh, I could throw all of them away, but maybe I'll just keep some of them for the goats. I might as well." She was almost afraid to go home for what her mother would say. She was so quiet again that the little goats wondered, was this really our shepherdess? Her mother was waiting for her with great excitement. For God's sake, for heaven's sake, Batushka, what kind of sport did you bring home yesterday? Why? Batushka faltered. Well, when you went away this morning, I started to reel the yarn, and I reeled, and I reeled, and I reeled, and the spool remained full. 1 skein, 2 skeins, 3 skeins, and the spool was full. What evil spirit has spun it? I cried out impatiently, and instantly the yarn disappeared from the spindle as it was blown away. Tell me, what does this mean? And so Batushka, she confessed to her mother all that she knew about the beautiful maiden. "Oh, that was a Wood Maiden," said her mother. "At noon and at midnight, the Wood Maidens dance. It is well that you are not a little boy, or sometimes they might dance little boys to death. It's a good thing that she liked you. It's a good thing that she liked you and she made you a present. Oh, why didn't you tell me, Batushka? If I hadn't grumbled, I would have had a yarn to fill the whole house." Batushka thought of a little basket and wondered if there might be something under the leaves. And she took out the spindle and the unspun flax and looked around once more. "Mother," she cried, "Mother, look, come here and see." Our mother looked and clapped her hands. The birch leaves were all turned to pure gold. But Batushka reproached herself bitterly. "Oh, if only she told me to look inside, but I didn't obey. If only I hadn't looked." "It's lucky you didn't empty the whole basket," said the mother. Next morning, she herself went to look for the handful of leaves that Batushka had thrown away, but she found them lying on the road. Birch leaves they were, just birch leaves. But those golden leaves, those riches that Batushka had brought home, they were enough. They were enough. Her mother bought a farm with fields and cattle, more goats and sheep and a cow. Batushka had clothes without holes in them, and no longer had to pasture the goats, but, she still liked to take them for a walk and sing to them. How she loved those goats. She no longer had a belly that hurt with hunger. They were always full, those bellies. But no matter what she did, and no matter how cheerful she was or how happy she was, and still nothing ever gave her quite as much pleasure as the dance with the Wood Maiden. And she often went to the birch wood in the hope of seeing that maiden again. But she never did. Thank you for joining me in the Story Apothecary. If you enjoy this podcast and the stories I tell, you can support me financially via a monthly subscription on Patreon at www.patreon.com/Nanatomova. Dancing with the Wood Maidens. Have you ever tried to dance in a forest? Or to sing in a forest? Oh, it's so magical. I often tell stories in forests when I lead story walks, or I've told stories to a robin. The birds love them, the trees love them. When I tell stories outside, the whole of the world responds. It's beautiful. I can't even imagine what dancing with a wood maiden is like. And this story for me is about giving yourself permission to, even if you are poor, even if you have such a hard job to do, a little bit of a song, a little bit of a dance in your step, giving yourself permission to feel joy, giving yourself permission to dance. Time for work and time for playfulness. I'm trying to embrace my playfulness myself. There's a lovely story. And we're coming up to the time where the wood maidens are coming back. And they dance most fiercely on the summer solstice with those white shifts. Their shadows, sometimes they're called, as thin as a spider's web. The best dancers in the world. They know their plants and herbs and roots so well. They're best among some of the best healers in this world. So if you're taking a walk, or if you're waking up early to watch the sunrise on the summer solstice and pick some herbs, then just watch out for the wood maidens. Maybe, just maybe, you'll see them. I hope you'll be able to join me for Sun Stories on the 19th of June. Beautiful sun stories. And there you get to hear a little bit more about the folklore around this time of year. So if you wanted to, you could incorporate it at the time of the solstice. But if you like stories, then I hope you'll join me. You never would have heard them before. And one of the stories is from at least the 10th century. So see there. The link for where you can get tickets, I'll put in the show notes. Oh, and also I'll be giving away 2 free tickets via Instagram from today. So if you go there, you can enter the draw and come for free to my sun stories for the summer solstice. Have a great few weeks. See you again very soon. The music on this podcast is by In Feathers. Thank you for joining me in the Story Apothecary for healing and medicinal stories. I hope we'll meet again. Until next time.